All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Farming Entrepreneurs TV. I am your host, Tamara Robertson, and I'm so excited about today's interview. We have with us today Carrissa McNamara, and she is the owner of Wildhorse Lavendar Farm over in Northwest Montana. Carrissa, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Tamara. So wonderful to be here. So great to see you.
Oh, so good to see you too. I'm very excited about this interview, and I absolutely love what you're doing with your farm. And you are just the epitome of entrepreneurship and everything. So I'm so excited that we get to have this recorded interview. So if you would mind, can you just kind of give us an introduction to your farm and what you guys are up to over there, and maybe a little history about your farm as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a lavender farm, and we do other herbs, and we have some community gardens and, pretty good sized fruit orchard. And we're over here in Plains. And sort of the history of the farm, we started out as traditional farmers. So cows and alfalfa, raising, cutting horses over in Utah. And we had talked about, we went through a lot on the farm. My husband is multi-generational, and, I think rural farms were going under this sort of habitat loss where there's like this, we keep getting pushed out further and further and further. And so, his family farm was eventually pushed out by I-15 and Redwood Road. And then we were pushed out of our farm. We were not far from Park City, and it was very rural and very beautiful, but the growth just made it impossible with the land prices. And so then we went a little further, and the same thing happened on that farm. So at the Utah farm, we were on a dead end dirt road, and the I-15 expansion came along, and the county surveyor, his measuring tape landed about 35 feet in our front room.
Oh, so it was, my goodness.
Yeah, so it was moving the farm once again. And so, when we made choices about what we were going to do and how that was going to look for the future of the farm, it was really, really important to us to be in a place where agriculture and rural communities was something that was valued and cared about and cherished in that community. And we really felt like, it was either Alaska or Montana was going to fit that bill, but the growing season in Alaska is a little bit different than here. So,
right.
We had been softly looking for probably 10 years. And, in Utah, the Utah farm, the last 8 years, they just turned the water off.
Wow.
But in those 10 years, they added 400 homes around us. And so, it was, the writing was on the wall where kind of the value system was. And, for us, that was made really easy to make that decision. And simultaneously, my husband's aging out of agriculture. And so, for him to be able to pass on this love and this passion and this, sustainability for the farm, we intuitively knew that we needed to change crops. And so, because it's difficult to be in town and be like, well, come out and see the alfalfa.
Right.
That's not everybody's, cup of tea, or, come out and see what we're doing with the cows. It's, there's a little bit of there's not enough mystery, or there's not enough sexiness in that crop to engage, non-producers to the farm. And so we talked about, we were at the kitchen table, and I said, well, what about lavender? And my husband said, well, I don't know. He says, how does it grow? And I said, I have no idea. And he says, well, what do you do with it? And I said, I have no idea. And he says, well, is it perennial or annual? And I said, I have no idea. And he says, well, it sounds like you got some research to do. And that's really where, Wildhorse Lavendar began. So our original, how we lived our life with the farm before, was always farm to community. So we would take all the things that we produced on the farm and take them to the community. And with this farm, we really wanted to try out a different model, which was community to the farm, and really focus and do that concerted effort to get as many feet, producer, non-producer, youth, whoever we could, on the ground, and, you know, share the legacy of the farm, so that when we need to call on those individuals to advocate for, you know, the habitat loss for farmers or what we're going through, our network of compassion and care and value of others to the farm would be there. And so that's really why we chose lavender as a crop. And it's been wildly successful, both as a producing crop and for the mission of getting community back to the farm.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's so funny that our stories are quite similar in that, because that was exactly what we kind of did when we, you know, started our farming journey, and just had to really look at, you know, what is it we want out of the farm and how are we going to make that, and is what we're doing going to support that, or do we need to change, and are we willing to change is the other thing. So I think it's really awesome that you guys just kind of jumped in feet first and went for it. That's really great. So I guess maybe explain to me the impact that living rurally has had on your business.
So I would say that living rurally and choosing to live rurally, you know, I think it's been a real benefit to us and how we've chosen sort of our lifestyle, I would guess. I mean, we really hunted out living rurally because we had, you know, encountered such loss. And so, you know, if you look at the complexion of where we've had all of our businesses, so we had a little boutique hotel upstate New York in a town of 600 people, you know, when there was 100 wineries within 45 minutes, but those wineries would do 1,500 people a day. And then we had a farm and a retreat business in Costa Rica, and the village in the mountains where we chose to do that was 300 people. And, you know, then we have the place here in a very, very small town. And so we've reflected a lot. We've actually, you know, it's unique to us as well, how we ended up in these very, very rural opportunities. And so we've actually sought it out. So I think, you know, for us, the real opportunity for being rural and building something rural is that there's a little bit of mystery and ruralness in everyone. And, you know, especially individuals in the larger cities, they want to come back to the farm, or they want to experience the peace that they don't have, or the forest or the mountains, or, you know, things like that. And that has really, really been a benefit to us with that rural piece.
Well, that's I just love the idea of living rurally, and I think it's kind of catching on, honestly, around the world and, you know, around the United States. People are seeking, like you said, seeking it out, and for us to, you know, kind of have our roots here and already established and stuff, it really does make a huge impact for the business. And, you know, we've kind of already got that one up step of we know how to do it and we've been doing it. And so now to really implement, you know, the techniques and stuff to grow your business, you know, I think it's just a complete benefit to have that kind of in your arsenal of things when you're trying to grow your farm, or, you know, what works here and what works there, and having those benefits. So what's one of the biggest challenges that you faced when trying to create your sustainable rural business?
I think the biggest challenges have been definitely from a moral standpoint, because of what we've done, you know, and also from access to market. So if I talk about the greatest challenges from a moral standpoint, you know, we had all these rural properties and we opened them up to individuals to be able to come and have an experience and do something and experience something that they hadn't really experienced. And that's a lot of flights. That's a lot of driving. That's a lot of rental cars. And, you know, at one point when we were at the peak of everything, my accountant called and he said, you know, you have either been in an airplane or in an airport for 5 months, 24 hours a day.
Wow.
And, you know, it didn't necessarily feel that way when we were engaging with the world like that. But I'm not sure with my knowledge and understanding that I would do that again that way, because I don't think there's a sustainability to that. I think that is really hard on the planet. We're leaving a really big impact. You know, so I think morally we sit down at the table and consider that a challenge. Like, how do we keep the gate wide open and still practice what we preach and, you know, be sustainable? From a market standpoint, it's really about access to markets and, you know, being able to, without $1 billion or without $1 million marketing campaign, you know, get your goods in stores and get, you know, some of those types of things. And so it's really, it's a challenge, but I also appreciate the small town for that, because relationships create so much access. So, you know, if you produce something that's really valuable, it's not difficult to continue to find channels to, you know, send it out there to people. But it's always kind of a shift in progress and finding those markets and being able to, you know, there's a big difference between wholesale and retail. And so to sell as individuals, we rely, you know, heavily on farmers markets, which are a ton of work, or online, to be able to tap those different resources or maybe bigger events. And then once you stepped into the wholesale territory, you know, there's always that concern or that challenge for us. Are we giving up some of the quality to produce the quantity? And we always want to maintain that trueness to that hand batched, you know, organically, regeneratively raised, you know, those types of things. And that's the wider the market goes, because of that wholesale component, the more difficult that gets to maintain that quality. So, you know, for the farm now, you know, we're by appointment only, because we're a working farm and we just can't have the gate wide open. And we're also, you know, 22 miles off the main drag. And you know, we've had some of those deep conversation about if I push the envelope, we could be open 9 to 5 from June to September. But I don't think our community doesn't want that. They don't want more individuals on their road. And I'm not sure I want to dump that much more carbon into the road. Right. And so it's created avenues for us to be creative, that when individuals do make, you know, their appointments to come and tour, that we're very thoughtful about it. If we do invite people to come and stay, it's for 3 or 4 days, so that they're not making that drive back and forth. And, you know, so I think there are challenges, but you know, if you really thought about what you want to accomplish there, it's doable to overcome them for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, you know, living rurally looks different for every single person and every single business. And, you know, where you're sitting for access might be completely different from, I mean, you might be selling the same product, but your access looks so much different. And so, yeah, you're right. To say there's one solution to it, there's really not. That's why I honestly feel, you know, farming and ranching, those people who do that, they are true entrepreneurs, because they have to figure it out if they want to, you know, really be sustainable in what they're doing and grow. And like you said, find the markets, or, you know, there have been a lot of people, I feel, they have all of a sudden just created their own market, you know?
Right.
And, you know, that's something, it's really genius, you know, I think for you and for everybody else that I've talked to, is just like, what is it that we want to do and how are we going to make it work? You know, I think it's really important for people to, you know, not change their dream but
Right.
to change the method of how they're getting to their dream, and
Yeah.
that's like, that's really a true component of living rurally, is how are we going to make this dream work? And because we're doing it,
We're doing it.
yeah, we're doing
Absolutely.
this, and this is going to be our dream, and now we just need to figure out how to make it work and get it done. What would be maybe one technique that has really stood out in your business that you feel has really created growth for you guys? Is it like more online marketing? Is it say, different, do you guys do booths, like the vendor
Sure.
shows and stuff, things like that? Like, what's one technique?
So, well, there's lots of techniques. I think like the ones that have been most successful for us long term are boots on the ground, people coming to visit the farm.
Okay.
Because I think you're absolutely right when it comes to, farmers and ranchers are sort of the original entrepreneurs. Our greatest blessing and our greatest curse is that we
Yeah.
are so adaptable, and we can fly with change like nobody's business. And that always worries me for farmers and ranchers, because if you're in a position to have I-15 come 35 feet in your front room, I mean, what better population to like pivot and make something happen the next day? Whereas, you know what I mean, that kind of comes to bite us as a population, because we are so adaptable. But I would say, the greatest marketing tool, it's the ground for the long-term relationship, because those individuals, when they come, and what we've done doesn't seem like a big deal to us, but we get people on the farm and they go, it's just you guys? And how did you do this? And, for us to say, well, you could do this. And they're like, there is no way we could, that 3 human beings did this. And then they go home and they say, you'll never believe this. So what we've noticed this year, because we're so, philosophically, we're so committed to our community, is that we open up the tours by appointment only. And it's the locals that are taking advantage of that, because they're the ones that know. And so people come to visit them for the summer and they say, well, let's go to the lavender farm. And then they make all their purchases and their gifts, and they, visit the farm, and they're just floored by what they see. And then they go home and we become like a regular stop for them, or they tell their friends, or because there's not much to do out here at all. And so we're starting to become that go-to place where people, another one for the long term is definitely like the vendor booths. But it's my recommendation for anybody doing that is ask really solid questions about what you want to achieve before you go there. So for instance, if I do a big show, my first question is there any other lavender folks there? Or like with our skincare line, I'll always ask, is there any other skincare lines that are there? Because I want to have a real clear, and then ask about the other booths. Well, what other booths do you have? Because you want to be, know where you are in that position lineup. And then also the amount of people for attendance, how many days, what are the shopping hours, what is my audience, kind of those same things that when we prepare to, give talks and things like that, that you have a real clear picture of what you're going into. But those are fabulous places. We've done so many of those over the last 10 years. And you might do amazing at a show and you might do terrible at a show, but there's always residual from those, for us, as long as we have that online presence. People, I'll see their names pop up 6 months later for gifts, or when it's Christmas time, or things like that. And so we do like 3 big trade shows a year. And we maybe will do a few farmers markets locally here in Thompson Falls and in Plains. And our goal with that is to be there for the community. I mean, we don't go and, but it's to let the community that know that we're here and we love them and we thank their support, and, and get to know their needs too.
Yeah.
At some
Yeah.
of the local farmers markets, like there are individuals out there that are really struggling with their health, or they're really struggling with alternative treatments, and you get to know their story. And like we have one lady last year, she came and she said, I'm really struggling with depression. Do you have any herbs for that? I've tried everything else. And being able to have her out to the farm and walk through some of the things that you could blend together or put together. And
So cool.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
just an
Very
opportunity
cool.
for that. Online wise, if you have the time to work it, it works.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I really sit down with our online platform for 5 hours a week. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
sales are incredible. If
Yeah.
I neglect it for 3 weeks, I'm 3 weeks without sales. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
it's a full-time job to work
Mm-hmm.
your platform. And that one doesn't always work the best for us. It may be in the wintertime, because you
Okay.
know how it is. The farm is
Yeah.
just go, 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 go.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Okay, so with the lavender and flower farming and stuff, if you were to talk to somebody who, say, wanted to try it, they wanted to
Yep.
try lavender farming, or they wanted to try, bringing people into their whatever it is that they're doing, what is probably the first most important step that you would say they need to look at into starting a business, or the agritourism aspect
Yeah.
of it?
Yeah.
So
I would say, it's so hard because our personality is just so, my husband and I are so type A, and we're so the same, and we're so jump first feet,
yeah.
or jump feet first into everything. And so when we decided on lavender, I mean, we had not met with anyone, we had not talked with
Okay.
anyone. We did, I love research, so I did a lot of research on my own.
Mhm.
But we had 2,000 plants ordered, and we were sitting at the kitchen table one day, and I was like, should we test the soil? You know what I mean? Zone had never even come up in our conversations.
Okay.
Soil
Okay.
had never come up. We intuitively knew,
Yeah.
we're more of the, we can spend a year to find out, or we can spend that year and be ahead of the game with failure and success to find
Yeah.
out for ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, everybody's going to they're going to come from a different place financially. They're going to come from a different personality where they really want to know what they have before they start. And so
Mhm.
I think the best thing to do is identify self-awareness, exactly where you are,
I
exactly,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, how much you're willing to risk. Anytime someone comes with a new idea, I always say, if you can attach to it for 10 years, you're going to be fine. So
Mhm.
if you can look at what you want to do and say, I could do this for 10 years, then you'll be fine and successful at the end of that, because the first
Mhm.
5 are just that trial and error, gutting
Yeah.
it out. And then
Mhm.
the next 5 are typically, the ones where you're really
Yeah.
enjoying.
Established growth. Mhm.
And maybe, we work with one of the lavender guys up in Summers, and there's 2 of them up there that are right off the road, so they can really capture that agritourism.
Oh yeah.
But when we
Mhm.
have, folks traveling, we refer to them because they're
Oh.
right on the road, like you're traveling through. But he has always said, have an end game,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
you kind of see where you want to end up. And I think loosely have that idea, but
Yeah.
your idea in practice is going to take you places that you never even thought of when you
Right.
started.
Right. Yes.
So
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in all of that. It's just one, just get started. I feel like a lot of people just, they're like, well, I think it's a good idea, or we probably could make it work, but I don't know, and I haven't done enough research, and what if it fails and stuff. And you just got to start. You just have to
yes,
start, and if it fails, then you change, and I think that's kind of like you guys and other rural rancher families, you know, if they have an idea and they want to run with it, then they just have to get started on it, like you said. And
Yep.
the good thing too about the end game, I think, is, you know, it's always good to almost work backwards. You know,
Yes.
this is my goal, but I'm going to get there by doing this, this, and this. So we're going to start down here. And then it makes it easy to lay your plan out and, you know, kind of have goals for those years, like year 1, year 2, year 5, year 10.
Yes.
But then, like you said, have it loosely and really be willing to just adjust this way or adjust that way and go for it.
Yes.
So
And I
I
think,
think,
yeah. And I think also, you know, don't drink out of the fire hose. Like taper it down, get a garden hose on the end of that thing so
yeah.
that it's down to a trickle. And I mean, even, you know, we talked about doing apples and cherries at one point because we can at our region. And, you know, when you come from bigger ag, you want to start there, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so putting it out on paper and penciling it in was kind of like, okay, how do we, and, you know, I went to my husband and I said, well, you know, if we buy, you know, 100 trees a year and just make the fence that big in 10 years, if we just do 100 trees, I mean, that's pretty substantial. You know,
Yeah.
you've got something behind you. And so, you know, don't always think that you have to start out with 10,000 plants or 2,000 plants or, you know, you could really get going and on your way with just, and financially not be suffering or be
Right.
hurt with just
Right.
300 plants a year, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so now if somebody was going to want to come visit you guys, what would be, you know, or even just find your products online? Can you kind of tell us how people can get a hold of you and where to find you?
Yes. So, I mean, just call us. You know, we're always here. You know how it is, Tamara.
Yes, yes,
You're never
yes, yep.
you're married to the ranch. You're never far. And then we're online at www.wildhorselavendar.com, and you can find us there. And you know, we're so open. If someone wants to come and learn about our cultivars or learn about what we're doing or learn about that piece, I mean, we are an open book because the more knowledge that's out there, if we walk someone through the lavender and, you know, they just have that in them, and 2 years from now they're doing it 3 times as good as us, guess what? We're already ahead of the game because we can go to them and say,
Yeah.
how did you do that? You know, and have
Yeah.
that information share
Mhm.
back and forth
Yeah.
is just unbelievable.
Mhm.
You know, because everyone will make it their own and make this,
Yeah,
you know, their
adjust
big.
and
Mm-hmm.
adapt and
Yep.
yeah. Very cool. Yeah. And I think you're right. Like the amount of community, you know, people are in rural and ag communities are so, you know, very focused on their neighbor, whether you're 300 miles away or, you know, just down the road, everybody's a neighbor. And like the way that you mentioned, you know, people will share information and they want everybody to succeed. And that's the great part about it.
Yeah.
So I really love that. But okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. I absolutely had a blast visiting with you. And I will, for everybody listening, I will put Carissa's website down at the bottom of this video so you guys can find her and check out her lavender farm. And then just make sure to like and subscribe to the page and watch for our next video. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Tamara.